My name is Kayla Gilbert, and I work for Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. I am the Denver Community Active Living Coalition, or Denver CALC Program Manager. And DOTI, or Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, is Denver's transportation agency, and we are focused on increasing mobility and safety while also reducing congestion and fighting climate change. We also are partnering with this event, partnering on this event with Denver Streets Partnership, a local coalition of community organizations that advocates for people-friendly streets. There are lots of ways to get involved with both Denver Streets Partnership, with DOTI, and with Denver CALC. So read more about those organizations in your program agenda and stay involved, active in those organizations after the summit. There's lots of stuff to get involved in. So just quickly, I want to put up our slide. That's the welcoming statement or code of conduct that you all agreed to when you registered. So thank you for doing that. The key simple part of this is we just want to be respectful and thoughtful and keep this a wonderful open spot for communication. So to that end, we just ask you to be respectful, thoughtful, open to new ideas, be respectful to our speakers and to other folks that are on the call that might have questions. And make sure that we are encouraging everyone to participate in this session today. So with that covered, I want to just quickly, so I will be moderating and looking at the back end producing this session, and then Christian Stewart, who's also here, will also be our technical support. So if you need anything, you can let me or Christian know. We will be monitoring the chat and taking your questions to the panel. And then let's see, I will hand it over at this point for a quick welcome from Mr. Eulois Cleckley, the Executive Director of Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. So take it away, Eulois.
Thanks, Kayla, and thanks to all those that are helping to support to put on this particular summit. Excited that even though during these challenging times where we traditionally would have this type of event face-to-face, that we can still be nimble enough as a department, and our supporters can be understanding and flexible enough to allow us to have this event to be conducted virtually. So we still should have the same level of excitement about today's topic and the topics throughout the entire conference. And so really want to give a shout out to Kayla, the CALC team, Christian, they're DOTI employees, but they really do a great job for us as they've kind of transitioned into our department and really have boosted us up in terms of how we provide more direct outreach to a lot of our communities across the city. So great job, guys, and look forward to a very successful conference. And so I'm as Kayla said, I'm Eulois Cleckley, Executive Director of the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, and give some opening remarks about why I decided to actually come in and provide an opening today. And really it boils down to what I believe is the actual theme of this particular event, which is Streets Are for People. And oftentimes when I give a lot of talks across the country around transportation, I really start to remind people about how important streets are to the livelihood and the ecosystem that we all live in. And so streets really move life. And life is about people, of course, us humans, and the street system should be able to move us effectively, regardless of what type of transportation that we want to use. But also, our streets use the products that we humans, we people, actually buy and procure. And so sometimes we forget about that. So it's about people, it's about the products that people buy and how their street system can move and facilitate the things that we buy and really a city's economy. And then lastly, our streets move or convey what I call the things that we emit. So if you think about the ecosystem that we live in, the fact that it does rain in Denver, our streets move rainwater and wastewater. When it snows, that snow melts and has to go somewhere. Our streets are used to not only store the snow, but actually convey the snow into our wastewater systems. And we do produce waste. Right, every single last one of us actually produces waste. And when you look underneath our street system, our sewer systems are what we govern as a Department of Transportation, but also are part of the fabric of our street network. And so streets really help facilitate the cycle of life. And that's why I think it's very appropriate that we really focused on the theme of Streets Are for People. And at this particular conference, as well as what you're hearing from today from some of the speakers, is actually real case studies and real people that are going to talk to you about one of the more important modes that our streets help support, which is transit. And I'll give you a little story about how transit is important to me through my travels here in the many cities that I've had the opportunity to actually work and live in. Transit, whether it be bus or rail, has been a part of my life and my existence around transportation. So whether it was when I was in Washington, D.C., taking a bus and taking a train to work or to be able to get around, or whether it is a element of where I am now here in Denver, which when I first got here, I did not have a vehicle, and my way of getting around was on the bus, the 0, the 83, the 87, the 0L, to be able to get to work, or bike. And so transit, getting around in a multimodal way has been a part of my way of life. But between Denver and DC, I actually had to stop in Houston for about 3 years. And one of the aspects that has, I think, exposed how important transit is and how important cities need to support transit and communities need to support transit is the fact when I moved down to Houston, I was trying to replicate my walkable, livable life in Denver. And I did research to figure out where I would live. And based off of the transportation system at the time there, which is really focused on light rail as well as some of the bus network, I tried to find a temporary place close by a bus stop that was about 2 miles away from where I worked. And so I got all excited, did a lot of internet searching, visited this place that I really enjoyed, and I thought it'd be a walkable location, about 2.2 miles from my job. About 2 weeks before I moved down into this apartment, RTD went through a whole, not RTD, Houston Metro went through a whole bus reimagining process. And the outcome of that is that it actually eliminated the bus stop that was right in front of my apartment building. The next closest bus stop was about a mile away. Now, I made a housing decision based off of access to transit, that when that transit stop changed and got eliminated, it completely impacted my commute pattern and it impacted my future housing decisions. I had a 15-minute commute in the morning by my vehicle at the time that turned into about a 35-minute commute in the evening time to go 2.5 miles. So that gives you an idea how important those decisions and agencies from a transit perspective and cities and communities have to rely on transit to be able to get around, to really have a livable life. And so with that being said, I'm excited about today's session and really to hear how Denver and how other examples of how we can help support the future of transit in a post-COVID world. Our department, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, we embarked on a collaborative effort looking at ways in which that the city can help recover from a transportation and mobility perspective once we get in kind of the new normal post-COVID world. And one aspect that came out of that work is the fact that we need to continue to invest in transit and make sure that our future decisions around street design do not preclude any options around transit. And in fact, we need to make sure that riders are safe. We need to make sure that we're moving towards making accessible areas for all people that need to use transit, and that the city don't lose sight of this specific mode and importance of it as we recover as a city due to our economic impact due to COVID. So I'm excited about the session, and I'm truly excited to hear from our guest speaker today. So Kayla, if you can go to the next slide. And our guest speaker today is Cam Hardy with the Cincinnati Better Bus Coalition. He's got his Twitter handle there, and I'm sure he would really appreciate all of you, joining Twitter. I have to catch up to you, Cam. I'm sure you have many more followers than I do. But Cam Hardy is the president and co-founder of the Better Bus Coalition. At the coalition, they mobilize riders, engage the public and private entities, and activate communities to push for a revamped bus system that provides true mobility and economic viability for the region. And it seems like one of the biggest successes that he's had so far is leading the charge to fully invest in our public transportation system by passing the first ever transit tax in the history of the county. And I would love to hear more about that, Cam. We can have a one-on-one discussion about how you're able to do that. That's something that we're focused on here in Denver. And can we figure out ways to leverage additional financial tools to build out a transit system? So that being said, thank you, Kayla, for the invite. Excited to hear from the speakers today, and definitely excited to hear about the panel. And Mr. Cam Hardy, we'll turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. I hope everyone can hear me well. I want to start off by thanking Denver Streets Partnership for the amazing opportunity to network and share information. I think that that having these sort of events and being able to have these conversations are important, and they're also very inspiring. I have had the opportunity since I've started this work to talk to a lot of activists, a lot of people in the movement, as well as a lot of executives who run transit systems, and just trying to learn, engage, and, see public transportation from other spectrums, and doing my research on Denver, I was very, very happy to see that the Department of Transportation is heavily involved in these kinds of things. Because, here in Cincinnati, the focus of our Department of Transportation and Engineering Department is solely around getting cars to move faster and getting, people out of the way of cars. And so it warms my heart to see, the Department of Transportation in Denver actively engaging around conversations beyond paving roads. My hope is that Cincinnati gets to that point. I think we're starting to get there with some of our safe streets and, some of the other initiatives such as bus lanes that we kind of forced their hand into implementing and stuff like that. So they're kind of getting away from just thinking about paving roads, and they've kind of expanded their, threshold and their vision. So I want to thank, everyone for the opportunity to be able to have this conversation. I'm proud, of the work that has been taking place, not only in Denver, on a grassroots level, but across the United States. Before I never envisioned myself as being I never woke up and was like, hey, I'm gonna be an activist, like this stuff really fell into my lap, and I'm going to explain more of that later. I mean, this fell into my lap, but my passion and love has always been with riding the bus, and so it's just an inspiration to see, these movements across the United States and seeing other people get involved and get engaged. It keeps me young. So, thank you. And, to the activists out there, keep up the good fight. Change starts with us. And, we can't look around wondering when our surroundings are going to get better, but we have to make our surroundings better. And we also have to remember that, we have to speak for people who cannot speak to make their surroundings better. So with keeping that in mind, keep up the good work and keep up the fight. We all have to roll up our sleeves and get involved. Whether you believe this or not, you can really make a difference, in your part of the world. And it does not have to be, a monumental thing. It can be something as small as joining your neighborhood organization. We have community councils in our city, and it's easy to get involved. Join your community council. Start talking about these things. Get other people interested. And that is how you can make a difference and move the needle. And you have to believe. You have to believe that something can actually change. You have to understand that it does not happen overnight. It's a long process. I started talking about transit. I was like a one-man machine for 2 years before, I felt like people really started taking me seriously, and we started building the movement to be taken seriously. So it's a marathon, not a sprint, and you have to remember that. And you can't get down on yourself when some days are better than others. And there's going to be days like that. Another thing, if you want to get involved, is to make sure that get all stakeholders, on board. It's nice. I've been doing my research on Denver, and talking about biking, talking about walkability, talking about making your streets better. It all goes hand in hand with an equitable transportation system. All of these things, work hand in hand. And in Cincinnati, we're experiencing a renaissance within our city. And some of it is to the detriment of people who, you know, um, you know, people who have been here their entire life. But if we can do simple things like create road diets, make our public transportation system better, run 24-hour buses through our highest ridership corridors, you know, that will allow people who have been here forever to actually stay in where they're at, stay in place, and continue to thrive in our neighborhood. So, you know, change is not necessarily bad, but we got to make sure that we don't just change for attracting new people. We have to make sure that we are investing in the people that are here too. So, also with that, we have to also know that the mission is bigger than us. This movement is bigger than me. It is bigger than you know than any one of us. As I said earlier, we're going to have to be a voice for the voiceless and speak for people who really just can't speak for themselves. When I first started this and I was on a bus and I'm trying to talk to other riders, a lot of people were disinterested. And at first I could not understand why, because I'm like, hey, this benefits you. This is something that directly benefits you. But on the other hand, if you're spending 3 hours a day commuting on a bus to a $9 an hour job because the bus can't get you to that 13, 14, 15, $16 an hour job, I mean, you just trying to catch a couple Z's on a bus because you're going to get home late. So you got to feed your family. You got to help the kids with homework. You ain't got time to be talking to nobody, about these issues. And so, that is who I think this mission is for. It's for people who, who are in the struggle every single day and no one is speaking for them, And so understanding that the mission is bigger than us will help us guide our heart on how to make the world a better place. So again, thank you, Denver Streets Partnership. It's an honor to be here tonight, knowing that there are folks who wake up every single day trying to figure out how to make a difference. And sometimes I used to think that I was on an island. I used to think that it was just me. But as I started learning and meeting more people, this is on the minds and hearts of a lot of people, and they just don't know how to get involved. So, I've been riding the bus my entire life. My mother started allowing me to ride the bus by myself to school when I was in elementary school. She worked early, and as a bus rider herself, she didn't have time to take me to school and get herself to work on time. She worked downtown, and I went to school in my neighborhood, but it was kind of far away from where we lived, so it wasn't very walkable. So she taught me how to ride the bus, and she taught me how to pay my fare. She taught me where to board, where to get off, and from that moment on, I fell in love with riding a bus. I remember the first bus driver I ever met. Her name was Miss Mary. She is now retired. I still have a relationship with her, but she made me feel safe. She made sure that I got to school on time and safely, and I feel like that helped mold my perception around public transportation. Because here's the thing: I don't know about Denver, but in Cincinnati, there is a dark cloud over people who ride the bus, meaning that it's looked at as a poverty program. It's looked at as something that's your last resort. It's looked at as, if you don't have a car, you somehow are, the underclass or something like that. And so, I push back against that notion, because I think that our bus system should be not only for the poor, but for people, for everybody. It should be for every single person who wants to use it. And, that is another big reason why, I got into the fight, because I want to change the perception of how people view it. I never thought about being poor. I never considered myself, or anything like that. I just like getting on a bus. I liked the community that riding the bus brought. I met all kinds of people, got to talk to the bus driver, got to talk, to my neighbors, to commuters, and even as a kid, I've always been someone, who was very energetic and always wanted to talk to people. So, building those relationships, were very easy, and it's something that I wanted to do. And so, like I said, Miss Mary helped, shape my experiences, as well as my perception of riding the bus. And I could sit here for hours and tell you hundreds of stories regarding the experiences I had riding the bus growing up. The type of community and love I got from bus riders as well as bus operators is a community that I will not find anywhere else. And those values and those feelings, I feel like organically led me to activism. Like I said, it's not activism wasn't something that I dreamed of doing, but I feel like passion is where activism comes from. You don't have to wake up and be like, hey, I'm gonna be an activist. I think that if you're passionate about an issue, if you're passionate about people, if you're passionate about making change, that is where activism comes in. And so, for me, it was something that fell to my lap as far as, doing these things. But it also wasn't hard because, as I said, it's something that I love to do. So, what inspired me to find the Better Bus Coalition was simply based on the fact that I was tired of dreaming about how the bus system used to be when I was a kid. I grew up in the 90s, and our bus system was pretty good, primarily because we operate on a hub and spoke system where all of our buses go down to one point, which is our downtown, and then they go back out to the neighborhood. In the 90s, all of the jobs were downtown. So our bus system was good in the respects that it would get you downtown fast. You had a lot of buses that were coming. It was great. And as the years went on, our bus system deteriorated severely. In 2001, I'm sorry, well, yeah, I started in 2001. I don't, for people who don't know much about Cincinnati, we had some civil unrest. We had a lot of police involved violence, police involved shootings, and it, really hurt the community. And in 2001, there was an unarmed gentleman who basically was gunned down by the police. He was being chased for misdemeanors, and it sent our city into a whirlwind. It sent our, it just made things a lot. It made things bad, and I like I said, I could spend hours talking about that too. But after, the violence and stuff like that, a lot of reforms were put in place. But my point of saying that was that directly after the unrest in 2000, this happened in 2001. In 2002, we went for a transit levy. in Hamilton County. I live in the city of Cincinnati. Hamilton County is the county, so you might hear me say use that terminology a lot tonight. But you know, the initiative was called Metro Moves, and unfortunately, my thing that I was going to show you the slides on was messed up, so I don't have the material, and I can share all the links with you afterwards. But basically, it was a very expansive initiative to bring better bus service, even bring us high-speed rail. It was very expansive. Let me tell you, it failed 3-1 across the county in 2002. Part of it was, the riots before. It was a lot of, it was a anti-city sentiment in the suburbs at the time, and the initiative failed. And ever since 2002, there was very little conversation about changing or transforming our public transportation system. So we literally went 17, 18 years without changing or transforming or even having a conversation about changing our bus system. And so fast forward from 2002 to 2007, 2008, when the economy was crashing across the world. We had an economic crisis, even here, and our bus system again took a huge hit. They decided to cut 20% of the service that was on the road at that time, on top of raising bus fare. So you talk about hemorrhaging ridership. Ever since then, our ridership has been decreasing every single year, virtually eliminating weekend service. Now we still have weekend service, but the levels are horrible. It's basically no point in you trying to ride the bus on the weekend because you're going to have to wait an hour, 45 minutes to an hour for a bus. And, I just don't think that it's fair that, the most vulnerable people who are riding the bus, lower income, African American, have to deal with that. So that was part of the reason that inspired me to start the Better Bus Coalition. Let me tell you a story. I was going to school. I was working 48 hours a week doing security, riding the bus everywhere. I was going home one night on the bus, and the bus broke down in the middle of our downtown. And that was probably like the fourth bus that week that I had been on that broken down. 6 years ago, our buses was breaking down every other day. We had a very old fleet. We have a lot of hills in Cincinnati. So our buses had to traverse these hills. We had bad winters. It's just hard on them. And so, they break down real fast. And I was on a bus, it broke down. So I fired up Facebook Live, and I planned on showing you this video. It's got a little bit of profanity in it, so I'm probably pretty glad I didn't share it. But I was outraged. I was like, why in the heck? What are our politicians doing? What is the transit? What is our CEO doing? Like, where is the urgency around making this better? And I was on Facebook. I went Facebook Live. The video went what I like to call Cincinnati viral. And the next day, which was a Sunday, I got a phone call from the CEO of our bus system, Metro, and the chairman of the sorter board. Have no idea how they got my number to this day. Don't know, but I had never talked to a CEO a day in my life. And he was very interested in riding the bus with me, hearing more of my concerns, and hearing, what I felt like could change or get better with our bus system. And even before I made this video, I was lightly getting involved, getting more vocal on social media. There is a group in our city that was put on by our local paper, the Inquirer. And so I joined that group. And we all know how social media can be very toxic and very draining. a lot of trolls, a lot of naysayers, but I handled that respectfully, with grace, respected people, and it caught the attention, of our media, and it caught the attention of our politicians that despite being cussed out and called all kinds of bad names and saying that this had no, like, screw public transportation, screw, making it better, no one's going to ride in, and I fought through all of that, and just remained steadfast. And like I said, it caught the attention. I was able to write some op-eds for our newspaper about it. Um, you know, I I referred to an article that I read in the Baltimore Sun about how they were trying to make their transportation system better, but there was a lot of politics. It was mired in politics. And so the theme of my very first op-ed was we need to drop politics and focus on public transportation. This should not be a political thing. This should not be about parties. It should be about the people. If we want to bring economic stability to our city and to our county, if we want to put people to work, politicians love to talk about jobs. They love to talk about connecting people to jobs. Well, this is low-hanging fruit that we can do by investing in our public transportation system to make it better. And so, like I said, I talked to the CEO. He told me the budget challenges that they were facing. We were a very unique place in a very unique place in Cincinnati with how we funded our public transportation system. So basically, we funded our public transportation system by earnings tax. Basically, if you work in a city, you pay a portion of your earned income to the city, and a portion of the portion that you pay to the city rolls off to Metro. So if you work in the city of Cincinnati, you pay 2.1%. 0.3 of the 2.1 goes to Metro. And so that is how we funded public transportation in our city. It's very unique. There's only one other place that uses a different funding model besides sales tax, and that's Toledo, Ohio. And they use property tax to fund their public transportation. And guess what? They don't run Sunday service either. So they're looking at trying to change it as well. And so this is how our public transportation system was funded in the 70s by this earnings tax. It's an outmoded way of paying for transit. We have a lot of deferred maintenance, upwards of millions of dollars in deferred maintenance, within our transportation system, because we are constantly relying on grants to replace buses. And, grants are not a sustainable way to fund a public transportation system, when you're trying to replace a fleet and keep a fleet up to par. Average age of a bus is 12 years old, are a million miles. So a lot of our buses were over a million miles, 17, 18, 19 years old. And, we're trying to rely on federal grants to fund it, just not sustainable. So the CEO told me all of this, and I'm like, okay, understandable, cool. So again, I'm writing op-eds, I'm interacting in these groups. We have a yearly event called the Neighborhood Summit. Cincinnati is a very unique place. We have 52 different neighborhoods within our city. So, we have town mentality, but really it's a pretty big city. Every different neighborhood is unique, it's different. But anyway, we have an event every year called the Neighborhood Summit, where we converge, community leaders converge. We talk about ways to make our neighborhoods better. We network, we hear presentations and things like that. One year I went to this Neighborhood Summit and I met some other bus riders who had read some op-eds, who shared my sentiments. So we decided to start meeting once a week. And fun fact, we've been meeting once a week for the last 4 years, every Wednesday. Before I was to come on here and give this speech today, I was meeting with our coalition. And so we have been dedicated to doing this, and we don't always have massive things to talk about or anything like that, but we're constantly strategizing and, keeping our ear to the ground of what's going on. So another thing that we did was we lined up our activism with a municipal election. So it was 2017. We were electing a mayor. It was a mayor, a city council race going on. Our mayor at the time, well, he's still our mayor, but he was going for re-election. And in 2013, when he ran for mayor, he ran on fixing our bus system. He ran on lowering fares. He ran on these things. He failed us. It was 2017 that he had failed us. And so what we did was we opposed him. It was really a boring election in the sense of like he was an incumbent. He was bound to get reelected, like he wasn't involved in any kind of scandals. I mean, it was a very sleepy election. So we decided to come in there and hype it up and make this election about making our bus system better. We ran a slate of candidates that we felt like was going to make our transportation system better if they got elected. We ran 5 candidates. 3 of the 5 got elected. So, we were out in the community making a ton of waves, being very loud, about these injustices surrounding our public transportation system. Our bus fleet was old, our routes are outdated, our funding system was outdated, and we understood that the city alone could not fix this problem. It's a county problem. Our buses go beyond the city. They go into the county. They go into our inner ring suburb. However, we wanted the city to start the conversation. So we vocally opposed our mayor. And, in Cincinnati, our politicians don't like being called out. I don't think any politicians like being called out, but especially in Cincinnati, they have very thin skin in the sense of, check out my Twitter and you will see what I'm talking about. I'm constantly asking politicians questions and they don't like that. So we capitalize on that, on the fact that they don't like to be called out to call them out. Now, I will also say that we were very respectful, no disrespect. We did not call people out of their names. We wanted to remain respectful because we didn't want to be discredited, because it's easy to discredit. Politicians will discredit you if you come, sideways, if you're not coming with respect. So there's a way to be respectful, but also very assertive about the issues that you were trying to push. So we were doing that. And so why the Better Bus Coalition? Why did we come up with this name? There was no political will to act on fixing our bus system, only talk. We have a streetcar in Cincinnati. I don't know if any other cities of people that are here are listening have streetcars. Our streetcar was extremely controversial in the sense that a lot of people didn't want it built. It went to the ballot twice. It passed. I was against the streetcar simply because at the time that they were trying to build the streetcar, I'm yelling about the bus system. I'm like, we're using all of our political energy to talk about a streetcar that's going in a circular motion downtown when we really should be talking about a bus system that goes well beyond our city. So even though I was against the streetcar, it passed. We were of the opinion like, look, we're not going to bash the streetcar because our tax dollars are in it. We want it to be successful, but we're not going to use our platform to talk about it. If anybody asks us about the streetcar, we are the Better Bus Coalition. We're talking about fixing our bus system. And so we wanted to focus on why our bus system sucked and why there were no real amenities around it. Bus stops that just had signs in with numbers on them. Didn't tell you where you were going, didn't tell you if you were going inbound, outbound, what time the bus comes, or anything like that. It was strictly just a pole with a sign on it. And it was just not, it was not presentable at all. And you were never going to attract new riders if your public transportation system isn't welcoming to new people. And that's why I always go back to the part that I said earlier, the public perception of it. If it's looked at as a poverty program, politicians are going to treat it like a poverty program. That's exactly how they treated it. And so, that is the main reason why we formed the Better Bus Coalition. We were meeting every week. One day we went in there and you say, you know what? It's time for us to officially form, create bylaws, start a nonprofit, raise money. We wanted to be official. And we did it. And we picked an election year to do it. And I feel like that's what gained our traction, because it was a boring election. No one was talking about anything besides us. We were talking about the buses, we were talking about making it better, and we were demanding change. So off of the Better Bus Coalition, there are a lot of things that we have been able to accomplish. Even before issue 7 and transforming the way that we fund our transportation system, we were able to do a number of things. Something that I'm very proud of, I talked about amenities. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with Streets Blog, but sorriest bus stop in America, we came in second place last year with one of our bus stops. And people were like, why you laugh about that? Well, because it was a way to embarrass not only the administration, but kind of poke at our transit agency a little bit. Because here's the thing, like, it sucks. Our bus stops suck. And the bus stop that we chose for this, I mean, like I said, I wish I had the picture to show you. I will put the links up after this, but it was a dirt hole. It was horrible. And Vancouver beat us, but we were proud that we came in second place. And guess what? We got that bus stop removed and they fixed it. And so that we saw that as a huge win. And they did it because they were embarrassed. They did it because we were making national news about how pathetic our bus stops were. And so, while I'm talking about bus stops, another thing that we did as a coalition around our bus stops is we started piloting. Someone just dropped a link. Appreciate that. We were piloting bus stop signs. So as I said, our bus stop signs are horrible. They have a number on them. That's about it. They don't tell you if you're going inbound, outbound. So we picked a very busy corridor on the west side of town. It's a very diverse area. We created bus stops in Spanish. We created bus stops in English. We showed them to people, and asked them their opinion on what they thought about them. Do they like these better? Should this be, something that we do? And so that was one of the things that we did, was start talking about our bus stops. Another thing that we did was our benches. So we started a bus beautification program where we adopted bus stops around the city. We started creating benches. We built them. We started out building them illegally, but it eventually rolled. Our bus stops are now written into our municipal code. They're legal. We're allowed to put them at bus stops. We're allowed to adopt bus stops. And again, that was because of pressure from us going to City Hall to say, how can y'all sit up here and, make our bus stops illegal, or try to say that our benches are illegal when y'all not put no investment? We asked y'all to put investment into it, and y'all didn't want to do that. So we have tons of stuff. I feel like I'm going on a tangent. We started a better bus plan too. Yes.
Yeah, if you want to finish up too, I want to make sure that we get to our panel, but we definitely want to keep hearing from you on the panel as well.
Yes. A few more things and I'm out of here. Yes. Out of here isn't done with this conversation. That's what I mean. So we started a better bus plan, which rolls into issue 7. Our better bus, what we did was we went to the same communities that rejected Metro moves in 2002, and we asked them what their vision was for public transportation. And so, long story short, we created an entire plan. It's over 100 pages. It's on our website, betterbuscoalition.org, if you want to check it out. We have detailed maps. We talk about bus rapid transit, BRT. We talk about everything. And eventually parts of our plan were adopted into the Reinventing Metro plan, which went on the ballot at the beginning of this year. Issue 7, it passed. That's our biggest win. It was issue 7. We led that, and it passed by 980 votes. So, in conclusion, like I said, you don't have to be an activist. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to be, you could just be outraged at something and you can make a difference in doing it. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Cam. We could definitely hear from you all night, I'm sure. I want to move on to our panel. We've got some great panelists lined up for you too, and Cam will stay with us as well. So we should make sure I'm sharing my screen here. So our speakers for this panel, this will be moderated by Eulois Cleckley, so he will join us again, and Cam will be on the panel as well. They will also be joined by Shontel Lewis, who's the RTD board director for District B here in Denver. And then Mr. Galen Johnson is a bus driver here in Denver to share his perspective on actually driving the buses that move us around. Also joined by Aria Spears, who is a young adult who also rides transit here in Denver, so sharing her perspective as well. And then lastly, Ryan Billings, who is a transit planner here at Denver DOTI. So we tried to cover various spectrums of transportation system for you. We've got some questions to get us started, but if you have any questions for the panelists for us to look at, definitely pop them in the chat box. So Eulois, take it away with our first question for our panelists.
Yeah, sure. And Cam, thank you for your remarks. It's amazing how one person's perseverance and confidence and courage can really promote change. So keep it up. And we're learning from your activism and really making our transportation and transit one that's best for all. So great job and keep it up. So just quickly, I'd like to just have an opening question, just to allow each one of the panelists just to introduce yourself real briefly, explain your role in a specific organization that you represent, and then as you're doing that, kind of share with us what you think about the importance of transit in terms of public health and equity. I know that can be a long explanation, but if we can keep it concise here, because we have multiple questions I'd like to get in front of you. But also, how has your idea, your thoughts about transit changed since COVID, since March, especially here in Denver? So I will open it up, and I see. Why don't we start with Mr. Billings, and then I'll just go down the list. So quickly, Ryan, if you give us just a couple minutes as an intro and answer that question.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Billings. I am the Transit and Corridors Planning Supervisor at DOTI. As mentioned, I lead a small but mighty team of transit planners and engineers that implement all kinds of wonderful transit improvements around the city and county of Denver. So one of the things that when I think about transit and kind of equity and public health, transit is what I like to call a great equalizer in the space of access to jobs, access to school, access to opportunity. There's very few tools, very few things in our society that have that amazing ability from the standpoint of getting people to those services and the things they need and allow them to build on their livelihoods and connect people. So from that perspective, transit's just this amazing thing that I think allows us to better connect and move ourselves forward. COVID and transit, it's tough. This has been a really tough year, I think, for folks that are in the space of public transportation. It's in a corner right now, and it's in a lot of ways nationally it's in crisis. But it hasn't changed my resolve. In fact, I think it's only galvanized and reinforced our commitments at the city to prioritize transit, especially for the folks that are in most need of it. And that's exactly what we're doing. So this is a great time to not only prioritize public transportation, but it's an opportunity to double down and really, really make sure when we're coming out of this that public transportation is at the forefront of our transportation system.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that. Let's move on to an actual important person in this conversation, Mr. Galen Johnson. I'd like to have you introduce yourself. It's always great to hear from our operating community. So same response if you can provide to that question. Galen, you're on mute.
Am I being heard now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Really not sure how I would answer that question as far as COVID is concerned. Like I said, I'm just an operator. Been doing this for 21 years, and the thing that I see that one, ridership is down. Two, some people are more concerned with the COVID, the distancing, the wearing of masks, the doing the right thing on the public transportation system. Far as it's affected driving the bus, or my perspective of driving the bus, the only thing I can basically talk about is, basically the ridership being down. People are well aware of the COVID situation, and hopefully, we will have, I don't know how to say this, and hopefully the transit system as a whole will make sure that, there's enough buses to get point A from point B. I know we're doing the limiting so many people on the bus, okay, to help keep the people safe. That's about it. I'm not sure how I would answer that question, because like the guy said before, that's a tough question. I just, like the man said in the movie, I just ride a bus. Okay, now I can't hear you. I see your lips moving.
All right, yeah, Galen, you've been with RTD for 21 years, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all as an operator?
And an instructor, yes.
Okay, so you have a lot of stories. So we'll after this,
Yeah.
we'll talk, okay?
All right.
All right, so let's move on. So we have a board member, Shontel Eulois here. So Shontel, do you want to provide a response to the question?
Sure.
Oh, you're muted too. I think we can hear you now. Oh. Nope. You hit it again. There we go.
Now you can hear me?
There we go. Yeah.
This happens at least 6 times a day at this point. So, hi everyone. My name is Shontel Eulois. I serve on the board for the Regional Transportation District. I would have to probably disagree with Mr. Gaylon that he's probably not just a bus operator, but really is the heart, right, of our transportation system, and the reason that we are able to move people. Without you, like, people don't know who I am. People certainly know who you are, and so I would kindly disagree with you. I mean, equity in public health, I think that's really, really, really important for me. I actually grew up utilizing public transportation. I grew up in 5 Points, and so I was bused to a neighborhood for school outside of 5 Points, was like a 45-minute bus ride. And sometimes I would miss the bus because, like, kids miss the bus and our parents were away dealing with the ills of poverty, right? And if our neighbor wasn't around and we didn't have the 10 cents to get on the bus, which it was the cost at that time for little ones, we didn't go to school. And so at a very young age, I became aware of what it meant to present access and what barriers were presented with that access, right? Like getting folks to school and folks not being able to get to school. And so when we talk about equity and public health, particularly equity, I am always advocating those that are marginalized. I'm always advocating for our vulnerable populations, because I believe that those folks deserve freedom, and I think they deserve that in the way of public transportation, for public transportation to get them into the places that they like to go, grocery stores, schools, etc. You've heard it on this call. In terms of COVID, I mean, it's just kind of I mean, public transportation is actually designed to carry a lot of people, right? And when we talk about social distancing, we've capped our buses at 15 and our trains at 30, right? And that's at 30 folks, and that's not how public transportation is designed. You have to think about the protections for not just our operators, but for our patrons. So we talk about PPE, we talk about masks, we talk about sanitation. I mean, this is just, COVID is just like a whole new world. Like if you are someone who says, you know, this is the way that we've always done it, you may not come out successfully on the other side of COVID, because none of this stuff is how we've ever done it. But I think for me, it has really reinforced, as Ryan said, really reinforced the need and the importance of us centering, right, those closest to the pain, those who are utilizing our services, those who are dependent on our transportation services. And I feel like at this point, it's made it a little easier for me to be able to advocate, because you can see the stories in real time of folks, our essential workers, right? And the folks who are depending on our services.
Great, thank you. Definitely appreciate that, and appreciate your service and serving on the RTD board. And so, Aria, you're up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then how are you feeling around transit during this time?
Hi, I'm Aria. Oh God, I'm a student and I go to school in downtown Denver, and I have to take the bus there, or at least when school was in session. And I think public health on public transit is kind of gotten better. Like before on the bus, when it used to be so crowded, there were so many people, you could it was like sardines in a can. Like people would always sit next to you even if you didn't want them to, but now it's a lot less crowded, and like it's much easier to be able to get on the bus and off without missing like your next train or your next bus. And I think that's definitely improved with COVID as like a plus. And with COVID, I think there's been a lot more sanitation, definitely, because before the bus stops would be a lot dirtier, the trains would be much dirtier, and so were the buses. But now it's a lot more clean just in general. And I think that's one of like really amazing, even out of how terrible COVID has been.
Awesome, man. It's amazing, and I appreciate those comments, because that's one of the benefits that I think we're realizing from this, is just figuring out ways to do things better, right? And so cleanliness and protecting the operators like Galen and the riders and the like, I think this is what we're learning out of this unfortunate pandemic. So you've met all of our panelists. I think I've covered everyone. And what I'd like to do is ask Cam a question. Since you, Cam, talked about funding, I would like to pose this question to you. A lot of times that policy and funding decisions around transit are made by public officials who actually have never ridden transit before, never got on a bus, never perhaps even got on the rail system. And so how do you think the inactivity from some of our public officials about not writing a service themselves actually plays into transportation funding decisions, or decisions around transit funding?
Well, I think that's a great question, because, that was part of our beef too, is that, you had a group of 13 people, and absolutely none of them rode the bus. None of them had any idea. And so basically you are making these decisions based off of a paper. You get a report and you say, okay, well, we're going to cut this, and that. We're going to do this. But you don't understand why is this route, why is the ridership down on this route? Well, if you run a bus every 2 hours, yeah, the ridership going to be down, because who can depend on the bus that's coming every 2 hours? And so I think that if you get people at the table who are experiencing actually what they are, experiencing, the system that they are overseeing, is very important. Something that we've been able to do now that we are transitioning our funding model to a sales tax, and our county is controlling the board. One of the rules of this board is that there has to be a bus rider on this board at all times. A bus rider meaning that someone who depends on the service, not someone who lives downtown and work downtown and take the bus 3 blocks down. Somebody who, if the bus breaks down, if the bus is not coming, that affects their livelihood. And I think that, if you have ownership in it like that, you care about it more. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think that for a long time, and it's just not a problem in Cincinnati or Hamilton County, you got people who are making these decisions who are at the table and they just don't understand kind of behind the scenes what's going on. And I would also say, we need to hear more from our bus operators too. I think that they are on the front lines every single day. They're the ones on the road, and I think that we missed the boat on allowing them to voice, some changes that they need that they would like to see as well. So that's my answer.
I appreciate that, Cam. Thanks. And in fact, let me throw that same question actually to Shontel. How do you feel about that? I mean, you mentioned that you ride the bus, but the rest of your board member contingent, I'll be curious to hear from you and your experience around other people's experience with the system.
Yeah, I don't actually disagree with that. I think it's imperative that if you represent a transportation system, that you should probably take the transit that you are, the product that you're pushing, right? I think it's important for that. It's one thing to understand transit in the theoretical, and it's important to understand it in the practical. And I think what I hear Camden saying is, those that are closest to the pain, and I push this all the time at R2D, are never a part of the decision making, right? We talk about our operators, we talk about our frontline staff, we talk about our maintenance folks, we talk about the folks who are even in our office buildings who are like planning our schedules, right? And the importance for folks who are in those offices to go out and meet with community to hear about those pain points. So you aren't just planning, right, from a financial standpoint or from a productivity standpoint, but you're actually understanding the stories that are connected to the folks who are behind the decisions or who are going to be burdened by the decisions that you're making. So I absolutely agree. I know what it's like to be a bus rider prior to COVID. I have not taken the bus since. I've actually ridden the bus my entire life. And that didn't stop when I became when I became elected. In fact, I ran because I took the bus and I wanted to make some improvements. But it's different now, right? Because I've been at home, I work from home primarily, and I haven't taken the bus. So I don't know what it's like to be a rider in COVID. So I think it's interesting to say, like, you have, there's more room. And as a director, I'm like, yeah, that room means that we are looking at significant budget deficits, right? But yeah, no, I actually don't disagree with him. I think it's important, and I encourage my colleagues as well, and many of them do, to take public transportation, because you gotta test the product that you're pushing.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great statement. And Galen, what do you think about that? I mean, you're the one that's operating the system, and I'm sure you have some commentary around that question. So I'd like to hear from you a little bit. Hey, you're on mute, Galen.
Am I still muted?
No, you're good. We can hear you now.
Okay. So I agree with both what's the name, Cam and Miss what's your name, Miss Hardy?
Shontel.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with both of y'all. And my question for the panel or you, Shontel, will be, how do you implement putting a bus driver? Because that's been my, people get on the bus all the time and they say, why is this bus late? How come this bus doesn't run more when you have more people? And I'm like, I just drive the bus. Now, if they would listen to bus drivers, like you said, or if they would have a bus driver on the panel or somebody, again, y'all hit all the nails on the head. People who actually ride and need the bus, people who drive the bus, people who have to deal with all the road improvements. Okay. And I don't know if that plays a part in this, because a lot of times when a bus driver gets verbally accosted about why the bus is late or something is wrong, all we can say is, I'm trying to be on time. I'm trying to, help you, get you from point A to point B without getting a long conversation. We just want you to get on the bus, get down the street, get you off the bus, get you where you need to go. But yes, if bus operators were asked, what do you think on this street, on this route, or if there was a bus panel, because one driver can't do it, because different parts of town, the streets do certain things, the ridership is different, and people are different. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. You have those privileged people that think the world revolves around them. So when the bus doesn't show up, and you're like, okay, sir, ma'am, go ahead and get on this bus. Okay, versus the everyday folks like myself, we just want the bus to get there and get us out the weather and get us down the street. But if my question to you, ma'am, would be, how do we start that? How do we select drivers and passenger panel to help assist you with making the decisions for getting on the bus? Now, I know they have these, every quarter we have these little certificates that come out. They're having a town meeting about the what the next quarter, what the next vote is going to do. Okay. And I see these late. Okay. And I know people see them late. And then again, if they get to there, and I'm just making this, I'm making an assumption. Okay. When I see these, by the time I see it, it's already too late, or somebody to react to go able to go to one of those panels to voice their opinion. And then 9 times out of 10, I see there's a flyer that comes after that. Okay, you have a meeting of where the meeting is going to be, and then you have a flyer of where the change is going to be done that be put on the bus. Okay, so that time, that transition from the time somebody put the flyer out and say, where's the meeting here? Come to this town hall so we can talk about how we can improve the system. And then you have the flyer that says, okay, these are the changes that we just made. That time, to me, is ridiculously short for somebody to react to a meeting to make the improvement. You understand what I'm saying? So it doesn't give enough time. And it gives the impression that, we had a meeting, but we already decided prior to this meeting, this is what we're going to do. So basically, if nobody comes to the meeting, we already have this in place, and then nothing gets done. Okay. And that's about where I feel about what everybody else is talking about. Yes, we need a lot more involvement from drivers, operators, and even people who work on the streets, because a lot of these streets, and I'm just going to ask this question for anybody that might be why do they tell perfectly good streets for buses to drive down when there's nothing wrong with the street? And then streets that we know we drive on that's always tore up, that's never fixed, Evans. It never gets.
I know that doesn't, you're not talking about Denver. I know that. You're talking about like Aurora or somewhere else. So that's good.
I'm talking about Denver.
So, all right. So I appreciate that comment, and Board Member Lewis. It sounds like you may have some homework a little bit. So
yeah, I got a little bit. I got it. I'm putting my cell phone number in the chat because the short answer is call me. I have lots of operators call me. The long answer is one of the things that I'm working on is putting a committee together where you all can provide some help and support to me as a board member, some thought partnership as I am thinking about these decisions to help me make these decisions together. So you're helping me to understand the nuance from your perspective, because I know it from mine. But I did put that call out just on Tuesday to operators to set up a number of conversations in each division that I would come to have these conversations, particularly around layoffs, furloughs, and our financial where we are financial as an agency. So just let you know, but I'll put my cell, call me.
Awesome. Yeah. Great connection. All right, let's move on to the next question. And for this one, I'd like to hear from Ryan and Aria. So RTD has the second largest service area in the nation. A lot of times when we talk about transit, or folks when they talk about transit, they oftentimes talk about rail instead of bus, and they kind of prioritize and make rail this attractive option and only talk about transit in that context. But really, what do you think the role of buses and how they should play in the transit world to really create a successful transit system now and into the future in a post-COVID world? So let me start with Ryan, and then we'll move on to Aria.
Yeah, great question. So several years ago, the city and county of Denver embarked on our first citywide transit plan. And if you read that 200+ page document, which is extremely exciting, you'll notice one theme. It focuses very heavily on the bus, because that's what we believe is really going to be the future of the city and county of Denver. We obviously have a really robust rail system, and that reaches the far reaches of the metro, but only about 10% of Denverites actually have a walking or biking access to a rail station. So it's not really accessible to a lot of the folks in Denver. You can drive to that station, and that's perfectly okay, but that's not necessarily where we're headed as a city. So from the standpoint of a bus system and the standpoint of kind of where we're headed, we truly believe that the bus is the future, and we're embarking on tons of programs and projects that put the bus kind of back in the driver's seat of the perception of what a good transit system looks like in the city and in the country. Everything from bus rapid transit, big efforts on East Colfax and potentially on Federal Boulevard, et cetera, all the way down to improvements, smaller, low-cost improvements like bus lanes and floating bus islands and transit security priority on our speed and reliability corridors. So buses have been neglected for a number of years. I think the city of county and Denver is here to say that let's put buses back as a priority. Let's complement the rail system that we have, but let's make sure that the bus system is accessible by 75% of the citizens of Denver and not the 43% currently.
Great. Thanks, Ryan, and thanks for leading the efforts on a lot of our transit activities for the department. So it's very, very important. So Aria, what do you think about this question? This idea of bus versus rail. Why are people saying that rail is so much better than bus, and how do you feel the impact of buses would look like in terms of a successful transit system?
I think the buses are kind of just like a stigma. Like whenever you hear like public transportation, the majority of people will think bus, but it's really both like the light rail or just the rail and the bus. It's both. They're both public transportation, even though the light rail is going to seem more like glorified because of how it goes to like different locations. Like it'll go to the Mile High station, it'll go to the Eulois Gardens station, it'll go straight downtown. But the buses still do that too. I think it's just because a lot of people find it more accessible somehow. Like I know definitely when I was in school, a lot of people would always like talk down to me for some reason because I would have to take the bus and the train to school, even though they took the school bus to get to the school themselves. Like it's very stigmatized for some reason, and I think the best way to like fix that for the future is for people to be more involved with it and know how to be able to help fix it too if there's any problems that they don't know about, like how dirty some of the bus stations will get, or how sometimes there's not even like one close by where people will live. Like I got lucky from when I had moved a year ago, like there's a bus station like 2 blocks away, but it still takes me about a 45-minute bus ride to get to my train and about a 15-minute train ride to get to my school, and then I have to walk 10 blocks. Like there's still a lot that has to go into like how people still get places. There's a lot that has to go into like fixing it or trying to like work on it.
Great. Thank you. And you're exactly right. So I'm gonna ask a modified question here. With all these sessions, they always give you some standard questions, but I'm gonna call an audible real quick. You don't mind that, Kayla, right? Very good. All right. And I'll open it up to the group. We're in a time where we're talking about new technologies. We're leveraging a new technology now for virtual meetings, right? So I just kind of have an opening to question: what technologies do we need to be ready for and prepared for to really make transit more efficient from a rider perspective, and then potentially from just operator perspective? Any thoughts on that? And I'll just open it up. See who wants to start. Why don't you, Kim? Why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I know in Cincinnati, something that we have been doing a lot is partnering with Uber and Lyft. I was very, very concerned about these partnerships when they first came up. But, now I'm learning that what we're doing is basically trying to mirror their technology. So for instance, we have paratransit here in our county that it's pathetic. You have to call 3 hours ahead. You know, there is a chance that your ride won't even show up. We're developing technology right now where you can be able to track that bus, track that van, track that vehicle that's coming to you, and you can just request it right through the app. Or, of course, for some of our senior citizens who don't, have access to a smartphone, they still can be able to call in. So, I was pretty reluctant to any sort of new technology in the beginning, but I think it's something that we should embrace and, and have an open mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other thoughts from anybody?
I would say one of the things that we've been having discussions about at RTD is around mobile ticketing, and even more so during COVID, because folks are concerned about touching things, right, and transfer of the virus. I think it's an interesting conversation to have, one from a lens of safety, but also from a lens of access. And so I'm always, I often pause when we talk about new technologies, because I want to make sure that the folks who are really utilizing our services aren't then presented with a barrier that prevents them from utilizing our services. But nonetheless, I think the mobile ticketing is something that I imagine we would be expanding in the very near future.
Very good. And then just from an operator perspective, Galen, what do you see on the front for technology enhancements? And just a time check, we have about 5 minutes left, and I do want to get to kind of closing remarks from the panel. Go ahead, Galen, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm 50-50 on both of those. A lot of the people that ride the bus are really not that, technology savvy. Okay, you try to tell people, well, they say, what schedule you're working with. But if you pull out your smartphone, you can get that. But on my thing is technology. If we can get people to use it, fine. But a lot of people don't. Okay, I see them every day. Everybody's putting money still in. Maybe, hopefully, 50% of people are using mobile ticket. How do you get people to do that? I don't know. So, again, that's a tough question.
All right, thanks, Galen. Appreciate it. And so I want to. We have about 4 minutes left, and I have one last question for the group. And I would like to end the last person to speak. I would like it to be the youngest person that's on here, right? And that's you, Aria, right? Okay. All right. So this is the last question. We have. I would say at certain times during the call tonight, we had about 30 people or so. And these are folks that they logged in for a reason, because I believe they want to help. They want to help support transit and the like. And so let me ask this, and let me start with Ryan, and then I'll kind of go down the list real quick. What do you think the people that listen to you tonight, what can they do, or what would you like them to do to help support the vision of transit? And so Ryan, let me start with you.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to do, and I think Cam is an excellent example of this, is do whatever you can, whatever that looks like, to get involved in the process, right? A lot of our work is as transparent as we can make it sometimes. And we're out there having conversations with folks that maybe have more time and disagree with, the direction of the city in a lot of ways. So being active, being involved, showing up to virtual meetings, showing up to real life meetings one day again, and advocating for those things that sometimes gets drowned out by that that squeaky minority that is against these potential changes. So I mean, it helps us, and it also broadens kind of people's perspective on what's really needed and what really should happen from a transportation standpoint.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Great. Cam, what are your thoughts, real quick? About a minute.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that the easiest way for people to get involved is to show up to the meetings. pay attention to what's going on around you. But we let national politics consume us a lot, but we don't tend to focus on the politicians that we can touch. So I think that we need to make sure that we are focusing on that.
Great, and you definitely provided an example for that. So well done. Dr. Lewis, Shontel, what are your thoughts? I think you're on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about this. I don't usually do teams, so I'm readjusting here. I mean, I'll keep it simple, and I say this because I'm an elected official. Harass your politicians, like hold them accountable, ask them questions, have conversations with them, meet with them, know what they're advocating for. Pay attention to their votes, right? Like pay attention to their platforms. Run for office. Also, like it's not everyone is powerful. Everyone has a voice. Everyone can make a change. Run for office. And we really, I mean, seeing operators on the bus, riders on the board, I think that would just be dope. So start with harassing your elected officials and holding them accountable, and then eventually just run for office, or even start there.
Very good. Yeah, definitely. All right. Just don't harass Michael Hancock, okay? Next. Galen, why don't you provide us with some comments, and then we'll wrap it up with Miss Aria. Muted.
And this is, obviously my first rodeo. Sorry about that. But agreeing with Shontel and everybody else, get involved. I don't know how you get people involved, okay, but from the grassroots on the front line level. Only thing I would like to say, okay, I know this is one of those gripes I'm gonna sneak in there. Okay, clear the streets. Okay, clear the streets. All the construction. You're gonna do the construction, do it at night, because again, the transportation would flow a lot better if we didn't have obstacles. Okay, and a lot of people, will want to talk to their politicians. So how do we do that? And I see a lot of crews at night, doing construction. That'd be the best thing for me to suggest, or be like Shontel and Ryan. If we can make that happen, it'd be a better transition. That's all I got.
Appreciate that. And take us home, Miss Spears. What are your thoughts for the audience?
In short, take action. If you want to know more about something, research it. If you want to help, donate money and help the organizations that are doing it, like this and our sponsors. It's a great way to get people together and to educate people about something they might not know a lot about. So ask questions, get involved, and take action.
And that's why we ended with you. That's a powerful statement. Well said and well done. And thank you to all the panelists, Galen, Cam, Shontel, Aria, and Ryan. You guys did an excellent job. Great conversation. And we'll turn it back over to Kayla, and you can wrap us up. So thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much. That was amazing. I really appreciated that discussion. I'm going to share my screen one last time because as you were talking about the bus being the future of Denver, I just wanted to pull up a quick picture. And that is our newest bus lanes here in Denver when we launched those not very long ago. So the bus is the future of Denver. Thank you everyone so much for joining in this conversation. I do have this recording. We will be posting that so you can access it later. And then make sure to check out our sessions for the rest of this week. We've got a lot of other really great sessions lined up for you. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Do some closing music. Have a great night. Enjoy your dinner.